Welcome to What Drives You, where we explore our human potential and seek the most efficient and effective personal growth methods and celebrate the miracle of just being alive. I'm your honored guide, Kevin Miller. In this episode, how to actually be known instead of remaining a best kept secret. So here I'm giving you the recipe for being known. And notice the word recipe. It's actually a term I think we would do well to use more in this personal growth space. Everyone is promoting to you that they have the answer for you, the secret, the perfectly baked cake to give you all you want. And it doesn't exist. What you want and can make use of is a recipe so you can bake your own cake, which you are left to do. Well, here we have a profound recipe for becoming known. So you have something great to offer. And if you're unclear on what exactly it is, or even if you think you know, you're going to want to hear this show. It will give you some more core clarity on how to understand what your core offering is. But even if you do know what your, again, key offering to the world is, you can die alone with it without anyone or many people ever knowing or experiencing you. You don't get to go out and actually help people with it. It happens all the time. So my guest here to help this issue is Rory Vaden, Vaden. He's literally a master at helping people hone in on their core offering and effectively get the word out to the world. And he's done so well with this at this point that even incredibly established people hire him. People like Ed Mylett and Lewis Howes and Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. Rory is the leading expert on the psychology of influence today, which he defines as moving ourselves and others to take action. Well, Rory's a New York Times bestselling author. I think I've had him on the show twice before. He's a Hall of Fame speaker, an 8-figure entrepreneur, and he's just become an incredibly trusted voice by both media and consumers alike. He's one of those guys that I find is a great influencer of influencers. He works with what he calls mission-driven messengers. You'll hear us talk about that, and I think you'll hear it and go, oh, that's me. Well, that's the point. And it's for people who aren't trying to just be influential for influence and, prestige and money's sake, but people who are literally striving to help and serve humanity. That's who he works with. Just here's some not even a complete exhaustive list, but just some of the highlights I pulled out without making this a 30-minute intro. All right. These are things that you're going to hear in just a moment. Don't start with why. Start with who you want to help. That's core info to focus in on that we so often miss. Rory says our purpose is not what we do, but who we serve. Think about that. We're all looking at, okay, what is my purpose? What do I do? He says, no, your purpose is who you are best equipped and desiring to serve. You are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. Think about that for a while. He describes how we tend to look to model people who are successful in our given field, right? Peers, and how we want to emulate what they are doing now. And we miss doing what they did to get them to where they are now. And we miss that part. He says right now what we need to do is the one specific thing over and over and over and over like they did to get known. Then you can do what they're doing now. We need to go back and do what they did. Rory teaches us to get consumed with the person that you're supposed to help, not with your peers who are more successful. A revelation of many that he offered in regards to this is there's no fear when you're thinking about helping someone, only when you're thinking about yourself. So think about that as you're looking to put yourself out there and you're feeling fearful. He says it's because you're missing the point. I mean, friends, this episode is really a masterclass in finding your core offering and effectively bringing it to the marketplace. If you want to influence others, listen in. If you want to go further than this show, which you may get all you need right here, but if you want to go further, you can talk with Rory's team for free. Go to freebrandcall.com/drive. And of course, they want your business if it fits. But to get it, they'll do what they teach and provide great value for free. And they'll teach you to do that. So you can take what you experience from their free call and run with it if you want. They're fine with that because they know that you'll probably tell other people because you're impressed with what they gave you. This is the type of strategy that they do teach. And you're going to, again, get such a truckload of it right here. So if nothing else, go to get the free call with them just to see how they do it and use what you learn there for yourself. Again, it's freebrandcall.com/drive. You're going to hear a lot of this. I think it's going to be incredibly exciting and empowering to you. I would love to hear about that. So would Rory. And I'd ask you just to let me know. kmiller@kevinmiller.co is my email address. All right. Up next, then, Rory Vaden. And again, the concept here is how to actually be known instead of remaining a best kept secret. That's where we start the show off talking about. And that is a danger for all of us to have this great thing to offer and be a best kept secret. We don't want to do that. That's what the show is. Well, Rory, yeah, I got to mention that here you are all these years later. And back in the day when I got together with Tom Ziglar and said, man, we need to revive, a podcast and talk about Zig and what makes him relevant today. And let's get some of the people who've been heavily influenced and talk about it. And you were I should look back. You were one of the first maybe 3-5 people we had on the show. We had Seth Godin on the show. We had Dave Ramsey. We had you on the show. And so this feels like you and I have been in contact since then, but what a good reunion to have you back. It's way overdue.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm so honored to be back. I have so much love and affinity for Zig and also for Dan Miller, your pops, It was sad and happy to hear about his passing. Sad for me and for us down here, but happy for him. I know that he is jamming up in heaven, and what a great man and what a great legacy. And so, yeah, it's good to be back. It's amazing to see how full circle, things transfer to the next generation, man. So I guess here we are.
Yeah. The fruit didn't fall far from the tree here, thankfully, or I hope. I hope that's my desire. I would be honored to do that. We're going to talk about influence. We're going to talk about personal brand. We're going to talk about business brand. However, I've known of you for a long time. I've known you. I know what you're about. And I want to start at a high level. And I got to be honest, as much as I don't want to, steal from another podcaster, I'm going to. I saw the clip of you on Ed Mylett's show. And that's what spurred me to where I want to start here. And you made the statement on his show that he apparently just loved, which is rightfully so, about purpose. And what you said is forget about, I'm paraphrasing, forget about purpose in some sense. The point is, who do you want to serve? That's your purpose. And you went on to say, that's what's unique about you. I want to start there because Rory, that's not new news. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun, and we don't get it. And it's acute to me. I have adult kids and we talk about this a lot, and they grapple with it, and I grapple with them with that. And I sent what you said to a daughter that I was just with for a couple of days. And, instead of this, you're grasping with the holy grail, this purpose, whatever, it's just, who do you want to serve? And I would add, as we get into it, who do you want to serve right now? It may not be for all time or all life, but who do you want to serve right now? So right there, I know you're a guy of faith as well, to look at that and try to break it down and make this tangible for everybody to say, we're going to talk about how to promote what you're about, but what are you about? So I want you to hit it, purpose in a sense, from a deep level, a spiritual level of us looking inside and going, what is it that we want to impart to people? What do we want to give to people? How do we get there?
Yeah, well, that is the essence of, a personal brand is not logos and fonts and colors and funnels and social media, at least not the way that we do it, right? The people that we're working with, we've been working with Ed Mylett and Lewis Howes and Amy Porterfield and Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. And we've been advising world changers. And that's, we say that we serve mission driven messengers. And a lot of the people we help are not world famous, right? They're more the world's best kept secret. And you go, well, how do you move from being the world's best kept secret to becoming world famous? And it's figuring out, it's aligning your personal brand with your personal purpose. Mm-hmm. And Simon Sinek so famously said, start with why.
Yeah.
And I love Simon Sinek. He's one of my favorite leadership writers. I think he's one of the smartest people on the planet. And I think, maybe for companies, it is start with why. But I'll say this, after we've been working now with a couple thousand personal brands, we've started saying, don't start with why, start with who. Because for most of us, our why is a who. On a singular human one-on-one level, as a person, our why is connected to a who. It's we want to do something to make our kids proud, or to provide a life that they had that we never had, or to serve people who are underserved or underprivileged, or to make our parents or our grandparents proud, or to solve a problem in the world. And it's like our lives have meaning in the context of other people. And going, if you think about selling, right? So one of the things we teach people do is how to build their business. And that was my wife and I back last time I was on this show. We were in the throes of building our first company, which was a sales coaching company.
Yeah.
And that was our life, was teaching salespeople how to sell. And we built that to 8 figures. We sold that in 2018. We had 200 people. And today we still teach people how to sell. We teach personal brands, mostly like authors and speakers and professional service providers, how to use their personal brand to grow their business. But when you're selling, there are wins and losses. But when you are serving, there are only wins. And the key to a personal brand that breaks through the noise is it can't just be about money. Mission-driven messengers win because it's not that money is not important. So don't hear what I'm not saying. We like money. We love making money. We're good at making money. But money is subservient to the mission. Income is subservient to impact. Reputation or revenue is subservient to reputation. And the sooner you're clear on who you're trying to help, there's a couple big benefits of that. First of all, the sooner that you're clear on who you're trying to help, the sooner you will find purpose in your life. Like if you go chasing money or fame or happiness, there's a good chance what you're going to find is indulgence and temptation and emptiness. If you go chase service, you'll find fulfillment and joy and peace. Our lives have meaning in the context of helping other people. There's nothing like the feeling we get when we add value to somebody else. And service is incredible in that it both is permanently fulfilling to go, I've added value to somebody's life. And it is also a desire that can never be fully quenched to where I keep going because I want to serve more and more and more. And so from a spiritual perspective, I mean, this is not new. Not everybody is, but I happen to be a hardcore Bible thumping Jesus freak. I am. And I'm very into apologetics and history and archaeology and the logic and academia behind the story of Jesus of Nazareth. But Jesus said, love God and love others. I mean, that's basically what he takes however many 633 Old Testament commands and laws and boils them down to 2. Love God and love others. What does love others mean? Love others means serve. I mean, what does love look like? Love means you're serving someone, you're adding value, you're helping them. And we just so happen to live in the greatest business era of human history that we can actually not just make a business out of serving others. We can get extremely wealthy, making a whole bunch of money by fully dedicating our lives in the service of helping other people. And by the way, this is the single best piece of personal branding advice I've ever received. So there's the spiritual component of service where you go, even if you don't care about building a personal brand and the other things we're going to talk about, just being clear on your purpose alone and realizing that your purpose is not a what do you do. It is a who do you serve. It's not a why do you do it. It is a who do you help. And that has a divine nature of it because that's how God designed us, right? Jesus serves us. He serves the disciples. He serves people. We are called to serve others. And that is the great secret that's where purpose and meaning and fulfillment comes from.
Yeah.
But as a business lesson, it's also extremely powerful and profitable. And so the best piece of personal branding advice I've ever received, and I wish this was a Rory Vaden quote, but this is not. I cannot take credit.
Okay, you get credit as the messenger.
Yeah.
The mission-driven messenger.
This quote comes from a gentleman named Larry Winget. And I heard Larry say this early in my speaking career.
I remember Larry. I remember the first book, Your Success is Your Own Damn Fault.
Yep.
Yep.
And then it Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. That was like this famous keynote in one of his books.
And rockstar branding. Holy smokes.
Yep. He was very good, but he was never really fully in the business of teaching people how to do this. But when I heard him say this, I was like, that is so brilliant. And what he said was, the goal is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. And Larry wasn't so much in the business really fully of teaching people how to do that. But when we started Brand Builders Group, we said, if we're going to start another company, let's develop a methodology to help people find their uniqueness. And not just make money, although monetization strategy is one of the things that we do really, really well. We actually just had our 10th client grow their annual revenue more than $1 million per year since we've been working with them. Wow. So we do the mechanics of making money really well. But, if there's a secret, since we're right on it, to go, how do you find your uniqueness? So we take people through a full 2-day process. It's called Finding Your Brand DNA. And it's these 6 questions that we walk people through. And we can go through as many of them as we can get to in the whatever time you want to spend on it today. But I'll give you people the shortcut right up front because people want to know, like, okay, what's the shortcut to finding my uniqueness? Is there a direct path to finding my purpose? And there is. And we didn't know this when we started the company. We know it now because as we've started training our strategists, so we're up to, I think we have 15 full-time employees who are just strategists. We have like 40 people in the company, but like 15 full-time employees just working with our 800 clients. And when we trained them, we noticed a pattern that was developing with almost all of our clients. And the pattern is this. It's realizing that for all of us, you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. Because nobody understands that person and their psychographics and their fears and their ambitions. And part of why we serve mission-driven messengers, right, is like, that was me. I was walking through the airport going, how do you get your book on the shelf in an airport? And how do you get that New York Times best-selling burst on there? Right? And then, I remember being in the rooms full of, there was speakers like Zig was on stage, right? And I'm going, how do you get to be the guy on stage in front of this auditorium? Mm-hmm. And I basically spent my life figuring out how to do that. And so when I meet someone who has that calling, or we meet someone, my wife and I really built my personal brand together, and we built both companies together. We had other business partners in the first company we sold in Brand Builders Group. It's just her and I, but she's the CEO and I'm the CMO. But we understand that person who goes, I care about money, but what I really care about is making an impact in the world. I do want influence. I want to not influence because I need fame or notoriety, but because I actually want to shape the world into a better place. And I know I need income to do that. And I would like to make income because also the more money I have, the more money I can give. But Brand Builders Group was never set up as a profit maximization machine. It was set up from the beginning because we had sold our other company. We didn't really need profit. So we set this up in the very beginning as an impact maximization machine. And that's what we help mission-driven messengers get clear on. And the place to start is with who.
Well, let me, so folks, we're like, 14 minutes in, and you've heard enough to just go away and ponder or start writing, or actually go back and listen to it again. Because there were so many mic drop statements that you made that were foundational. Now, of course, we do want to get into the how. How do you do that? I mean, but one of the things that you said, you mentioned the secret, that there are so many people out there with great things to offer, and you don't want them to be the best kept secret. That is why you're on the show. Or that's one of the reasons. I mean, that's a point of the tip of the spear we're going to get to, because I'm grieved by that, by people who have such a message. It's so powerful. It so impacts me, and I want other people to hear it. And I'm aware if you don't go out there and play the game right, it will stay the best kept secret ever. And that burdens me significantly. So we're going to get to that as much as we can today, though ultimately, folks, I mean, as with every guest I have on the show, they've got resources. Go there and you can take advantage of them. This one, freebrandcall.com/drive, freebrandcall.com/drive. That's the place with Rory, with his wife, with his team, where they will help you do it. So I'm saying that now because I do want to hit some big ticket issues here. And if we don't get into the minutia, that is your opportunity to go and make this stuff happen so you don't remain the best kept secret. I do want to spend a little more time on what that secret is, Rory. And one thing on serving other people, I'm with you. I feel like at the end of the day, we can try to be gracious, but I've not really met anyone of you and the 250 people in the books behind me as we record here that I've had on the show. They all have a person. They have a who that they are serving. That's why they're there. I think it is unequivocally, it's the people that we serve. That is where we ultimately find purpose. But I want to talk about that. And you just opened the door to it, because there's the propensity, as you know, to judge who we're serving. Right? I mean, we've got people who are in war, across the ocean and dire things. And we're over here thinking, oh my, how can I justify selling Porsches? I mean, we can get into that game. So you just opened the door to it, and I want you to go further through it. You said you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. Now, if in addition to that, you feel called to go serve homeless people and you've never been homeless, that's okay. Sure. That's still something, but overall, your daily devotion, that is what I find with people now that I think about it, but I've never heard it said like that, Rory. I'm going to say it again. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. That gives people a direction to go when they go, holy smokes, who am I supposed to serve? What's altruistic enough or humanitarian enough? And you're saying, go serve the people, the person you once were. That's one of the most helpful statements I've heard.
Thank you. That makes me happy. Well, and we want it to be, because we believe that this is God's divine design of your humanity. That I'll give you let's break down another internet meme that you hear a lot, right? So you see this on the internet a lot these days. People say, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I actually really love that. I love that quote, because I go, that really is a powerful, it reframes like, heartbreak or whatever. But the way we think of it is actually a level different than that, is that it doesn't happen to you, it happens for others, meaning it shapes you into who you need to be to help other people. So, for example, you go, what direction should I move in to find my purpose? Well, simple. Ask yourself these questions. What challenge have you conquered? What setback have you survived? What tragedy have you triumphed over? What obstacle have you overcome? Whatever the answer is to those questions is the person you are most powerfully positioned to serve.
And can I put in there, Rory? And I don't want to interrupt, but I love that, because from the other side, that's what we want as well. So the person who weighed 500 pounds, I'm thinking back in the old days and the pictures of somebody holding their pants out, they weighed 500 pounds. Now they weigh 150, whatever. And they're so excited and they so want to share the journey and what it did for them to their lives. And so that's who they go serve, as the person who weighs 500 pounds to help them. Now, on the other side though, if I weigh 500 pounds, who do I want to hear from? That person. I don't want to hear from
the 23-year-old.
I don't want to hear from Kevin,
year-old fitness trainer, right?
Yeah, or even me. I feel privileged. I'm 53. I was a pro athlete. I've always been sports. I've never been overweight. What do I have to offer you? I mean, I can give tips and health and wellness and stuff, but I don't know your journey. I can't feed in it. So I see those people who do that and I think, oh my gosh, they're rock stars. I don't know that I could do that. I'm too much of an addicted foodie myself, to do that. And so it's interesting that you say that's who we're best equipped to serve. And those people want us. They want us with that story. Again, I love, well, that's why you're on the show. Keep slapping wisdom down.
So that's exactly it, right? And you go, this process of finding your uniqueness is about understanding that everything that has happened to you is a part of preparing you and shaping you into the person you needed to become so that one day you could reach back and help somebody else. Because you know what it feels like to be that person. Not just on a logical level, right? Like, to use the analogy you were just using, Kevin, is to go, logically, anyone who's healthy could teach someone something about what it means to be unhealthy. But it's not just about sharing logic. It's about empathizing emotionally. And to go, if you've been a professional athlete your whole life, you probably don't emotionally empathize fully with someone who weighs 500 pounds like someone who used to be 500 pounds. And that emotional connection is what it takes to break through the wall. So
no, I connect with somebody who was at that place and started business and sabotaged them because of their own, baggage in other ways. I have different ways that I can relate. I do want to pull one thing out, Rory, just out of sensitivity that I know that you have, but I hear people's stories and they go, yeah, I heard this thing, but that upset me. And they're not hearing you, Rory, say, hey, whatever happened to you was, I'm going to exaggerate the point, that was supposed to happen so that you could go bless other people. If you were
not abused, if you're a victim, not
right, if you were abused or raped, we're not saying, Rory's not saying that, we're not saying that that's, that was supposed to happen, you're supposed to, he's saying you can though take that. You now have the ability. So sorry that happened. So sorry that happened. And you continue, and you can take that and now serve somebody you couldn't otherwise. Can we call it redemption to a point?
Yeah. I mean, I think all I can call it is purpose, right? I mean, to your original question is to go, it is a way to transform pain. It is a way to give context to circumstances. It is a way to redeem it, to go, what the devil meant for evil, God used for good by turning it around and serving other people.
As Jesus wept with this happening, but you can, I love that, redeem it, transform it is a great word.
So I think, we definitely, I don't want to make light of anyone's difficult circumstances, right? Or whatever, but it is to go, if you've been through something difficult, it does uniquely equip you to help other people who are in that scenario more than other people. And like, a lot of times we think the person that's most qualified to help is the smartest person, right? Like, if it's the health example, we go, oh, well, it's a doctor who should serve. And you go, actually, no, it's the other person who's been on the journey, because they can serve you not just logically, but emotionally. They understand the fears, the limiting beliefs, right? If you go to conquer any goal, is to have to adopt a set of logic and information and education and instruction that's required to achieve the goal.
Mm-hmm.
But most of that's fairly readily available. The real dilemma in achieving a dream is overcoming the emotional hurdles of one limiting belief after another, after another, after another, of why I'm not good enough, how I'll never be able to afford it, this wasn't meant for me, only certain people have this, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not old enough, I don't have the degree, I don't have the connections. And to truly conquer impossible goals, it's like what you're really knocking down is these emotional limiting beliefs, these barriers one at a time.
That you had to experience. I mean, you're making me think of, I haven't done a survey. I would be tempted to say that of the therapists I've had on my show, the rock star therapists, Terry Real and Vienna Farron and on. I mean, I don't know the list. It's so many. I don't know if there's any of them who didn't start with, they were at the bottom, at a bottom. They suffered this. They suffered the divorce. They suffered the panic attack. That's Dan Harris. They suffered the abuse. They suffered the whatever. And in working themselves out, now they're come out with their offering. And I always struggle with that because I don't want to go, you don't have anything on the other side. You don't have anything to offer if you haven't gone through, trial and trauma. Everybody has to some degree. I mean, we've all had disappointments. We've all had things, even in my privileged life. I mean, I teach so much this is coming from my own personal unawareness. Rockstar in performance, zero on emotional awareness of myself and my life. And that's so much of what these shows are for, and taking these messages and figuring out a way that we can actually hear them and embrace them and digest them and understand them. And man, I have a heart for that because it's what changes my life. I love this message, Rory. I want to say, as we did, there's nothing new under the sun. Man, there are new ways to look at it that go, oh, I've heard that 100 times, but the switch just flipped. And for you to say, I'm eager. Actually, I'm like, can we get in this? Because I want to email my kids, text my kids and say, look this is the guy said this thing. And to look at the person that you were, that you are right now, which came out, Rory, with so many of the people I have on the show, that so many of the things that they created, the book they wrote, the methodology to whatever, they created it while they were in the mess. They were getting out of the mess. It wasn't 20 years later after they had arrived and made $1 billion. It's Napoleon Hill who created it. And if you go back and do the math, he wrote this while he was in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And he was writing his way out. Yeah.
Yeah, that is it. And, we sometimes will say that your uniqueness lives at the intersection of who you've always been and who you feel called to be. Because those are our biggest clues to find your uniqueness.
Will you say it again? That's worth saying again.
Yeah, your uniqueness lives at the intersection of who you've always been and who you feel called to be. Because who you feel called to be, so some of the questions that we ask around this is like, what are you most passionate about? And not just passion like sunshine and rainbows, but like, what breaks your heart?
I was just going to say it. That's a Lynn Twist, statement. I love it. Yeah.
What makes you mad, right? Like what pisses you off?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you look at in the world and you say, I'm not okay with that existing in the world why I live here. I feel a calling to do something about this particular issue, right? And for some people, it's the environment. Some people, it's animals, right? Some people, it's homeless. Some people, it's, sex trafficking. We've got clients that work on anti-porn campaigns and they're all of our clients are called to something, but they're all different things, but they're leaning into what they feel called to because you go, that is a hint. We believe, again, that what breaks your heart for a reason, that God put that there as a signal to you to go, you're the person who's supposed to do something about this. You're the person who is supposed to care about this. You're the person who's supposed to step up and solve this issue. And sometimes it's like very obviously noble, like bringing water to, third world countries. But AJ and I view our work in Brand Builders Group in that way, to go, here we have again we built our second 8-figure business. And this time we went from 0 to 8 figures in 5 years with no email list, no investors, no debt, no social media, no podcast, no website. We sold all of that, and it was all gone in the exit of our first company. And part of how we do it is because we feel like our purpose is to help God's people be heard. I mean, specifically, that's how we interpret it, but it's to help bring a megaphone to the world's best kept secrets.
Can I dig it? That was literally my next question. I was going to turn it around on you to look at that and say, okay, you have obviously from your youth, experienced a knack, a skill, a talent, a gift that you have done a lot of work to hone and refine and bring to the world. And you are good with, to some degree, business. We could start there. Now we funnel down into certain types, but at business, at monetizing things, at helping messages get out there. And as we're, the overall arching here of influence and brand, which we're going to talk about more here in a second, but you're good at doing that. So if you want to just make money, period, we could debate who that audience or demographic would be best for. Maybe you should go work for actors and actresses or celebrities or rock stars or porn stars or whatever it may be, and say, hey, we're going to take this and just help them make $1 billion, and we're going to make this. Not to make it about money, but just to exaggerate the point. But you did look and go, who do we care to help? Now, what you do is a high level thing. It's not something, you don't need to go, gosh, I want to be tactful here, but homeless people don't need your skill, that skill. That's not where they need a different skill that somebody else is gifted to have and has that experience of being homeless. Who can you do it? So you said mission-driven messengers. Now you just said, God's people and get their message out. That's where you put it in a way that gives you purpose and fulfillment and meets that need. So for everybody, again, not to judge the reality, because if you step back, can I poke at you, Rory?
Go for it. Yeah, of course.
All right. Because if I step back, I go, Rory's serving the world. Oh, he's working with people like Ed Mylett. People have millions of dollars, and he's just helping to make more millions. Okay, you could take a sarcastic, critical view of that, but your skill set, if it helps Ed put a note out that benefits whoever's listening to him, and they get the ripple effect, the butterfly effect, and I'm not just justifying, it's just it's math. And you put it to where it makes sense. And so again, I was going to ask you that. So I love that you guys took what you did, said, we can help people. These are the kind of people we want to help, the people that are doing this for other people, and down the line. And it's a beautiful pyramid.
Yeah. And Ed Mylett and, John Maxwell is a private client of ours, right? Like these, but they're not the majority of our clients. That's the 1%. We've got 840 active members right now in our actual coaching program. And they're all people that are world's best kept, most of them are world's best kept secrets, right? Mm. We have had some really amazing breakthrough rising stars, which has been huge, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. Mm-hmm. We've actually helped 36 different authors become New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or USA Today bestselling authors. So we've had 36 clients do that. We've had 6 clients write TED Talks that have gone viral with over 1 million views. So
let me attest to Gabrielle. So I have known kind of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon a little bit. And I've told people that, because we had her on the show, 6 months ago or something like that. I think it was, well, folks, if you're listening, I think it was into 2023 or something. We had Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, functional medicine, and she's muscle-centric medicine. But what I've noticed, it's interesting that you say, yeah, she's a client, because holy smokes, she's everywhere.
She's blown up.
She's blown up. Yeah. So kudos. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we often get a lot more credit than we deserve. With a lot of these people, we made a significant movement on their book and their book launch, right? That's something that we do really well. And we helped her, she hit number 3 on the New York Times, and that makes a big difference. Right. So, but most what we do is we're taking the work and the expertise that people already have, and we're helping them extract it into maximum influence and income. I mean, monetization strategy is something that we're gifted at. And,
well, and you can bring that down then to the person who's, can we do that? Bring it down to the person who is, they're the best kept secret, or maybe they've even just got an idea. They're sitting here and they listen to it and go, man, I know I've got something to offer. I've got something to offer, and they don't have a lot happen. And maybe they do have a website or even a small book, but it hasn't gone much anywhere. And they're looking out here and it feels insurmountable in today's day and age. And the social media, it feels like you have to be a genius or spend $1 billion. Otherwise, you're just going to remain the best kept secret because nobody can keep up with that. I mean, I hear that from people. That's the feeling of that, of going, oh my gosh, where do you go? So if they hear this, what we've talked about thus far, of their uniqueness, what they have to offer, what they've experienced, the people that they're drawn to, and there's step 1. So you get that. Now, what do you do with it? And that's deer in the headlights.
Let's talk about a concept called Sheehan's Wall. This is really important for anyone who feels like, there's so much noise in the world, because there is. And if basically the concept of Sheehan's Wall, so we named this after Peter Sheehan, because Peter's the one who came up with the concept originally. He kind of applied it to more corporate audiences, and we tailored this to personal brands. But in any given vertical or geographic territory or industry, there's 2 groups of people. There are those who are unknown, right? They're living in obscurity. Then there are those who are well known. They have notoriety, right? This is Oprah and Brene Brown and Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and people like that. And what people don't realize, but the way you have to think about it is, like, in between these 2 groups is this huge invisible wall that we call Sheehan's Wall. Okay. And what most people do, most people who are living in obscurity, right? They're unknown. They're trying to break through the wall to reach notoriety and become well known. Well, very naturally or instinctively, the people who are unknown look at what the well-known people are doing and they try to emulate them. And so they go, well, Gary Vaynerchuk, talks about lots of different topics, right? He talks about Web3 and sports and music and entertainment. And Tony Robbins has, Unleash the Power Within and Date with Destiny and Business Mastery and health and investing and all of these different topics. And so they go, well, I'll talk about lots of topics. So they talk about a lot of topics. Then they're trying to be on lots of different platforms, right? They're going, oh, well, you have to be on LinkedIn, you have to be on X, and you got to be on YouTube, and you got to be on Instagram, and you got to be on Pinterest, and you got to have a podcast. And so they have lots of different platforms. Then what happens is they go and they try to serve lots of audiences. And they're like, well, I really have a heart for single moms, but I also like talking to business people. But like some of my followers are from like my friends in high school, and some are like my colleagues at my day job, and some are like clients. And so I'm like trying to serve all these audiences. And then they hear something stupid, which is one of my least favorite pieces of advice, which is multiple streams of income. And somebody tells them you should have multiple streams of income. And so every time they go on Instagram, they're scrolling and there's a new ad for the key to make money is with membership sites. No, you should launch a course. No, you should do webinars. No, you should do live events. No, you should self-publish a book. No, you should launch masterminds. You should do destination retreats. Like you should do live events and sell tickets. Like you should become a keynote speaker. You should launch a coaching program. And so they launch all of these different business models. And so they're talking to too many audiences on too many platforms about too many topics with too many different business models. And what happens is they bounce off the wall. And they are the people who are creating the very noise that they are trying to escape from. The way to break through the wall, and if you think about it like this, think about it as an actual wall, right? So let's say I have a concrete wall in front of me. If I take a sledgehammer and I'm hitting all these different places on the wall, right? Nothing is happening to that wall. The sledgehammer is just bouncing off and I'm just getting frustrated. The key is to hit the same spot on the wall over and over and over. And in the beginning, it's frustrating because nothing's happening. But then a little paint starts to chip off. Then it starts to crack. Then there's a little divot in the wall. Then you carve out a little space. And if you keep hitting it over and over and over, the same spot, you break through the wall on this one little tiny spot. And once you break through the wall, you simply reach through and pull back, and the whole wall comes crashing down. That hole is your uniqueness, and it is figuring out what is the one thing that you can be known for. What is the one audience you get? There's 4 1 things that we help people get clear on in brand DNA. What problem do you solve in one word? Who do you solve that problem for in one phrase? How do you solve that problem in one sentence? And what one revenue stream matters above all others in your business? And we get clear on those 4 1 things. And as you get clear on those 4 1 things, you break through the wall. And this is the pattern that has worked again and again and again. If you look at Brené Brown, I don't think ever set out on a mission to become one of Time Magazine's most influential people in the world.
Yeah.
Brené Brown dedicated her life to studying shame. You cannot talk about shame without mentioning the name Brené Brown. She was a researcher. For years, she studied shame. And she broke through the wall on that one problem. Dave Ramsey is exactly the same way. Dave Ramsey has said the same thing on the radio every day for 3 hours for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Your dad was one of Dave's best friends. Like, Dave talks about debt is dumb, and he has said it over and over and over, the same 7 baby steps for 30 years, and that has become a multi-9-figure business. That's multi-$100 million a year business, over 1,000 employees, 17 million weekly listeners on the radio show, and 1 billion podcast downloads. And the guy only talks about one thing: debt. Dave owns the topic of debt. You cannot talk about debt and not mention the name Dave Ramsey. Tony Robbins dedicated his life to helping people break free from pain. Mel Robbins talks all about anxiety and her panic attacks. Like, if you look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he dedicated his life to rid the world of racism, right? And like that, Mother Teresa dedicated her life to try to rid the world of poverty. So what problem are you dedicating your life to solving? Because if you don't know the answer to that question, it makes it no one else is going to know either. And I broke through the wall initially with, my first book, Take the Stairs, and my second book, which is about how to multiply time, all about studying procrastination. And for like the first 10 years of my career, all I did was study the psychology of procrastination and help people overcome procrastination and teach people how to take action in their own life. And that was the one area that I broke through the wall. And then you can expand into lots of different things. Gary Vaynerchuk is a great example. So yes, he talks about all sorts of stuff today on all sorts of platforms. But in the beginning, Gary Vaynerchuk talked about one topic, wine, on one platform, YouTube. Amazon is one of the greatest examples of this. Amazon literally sells like everything you can imagine, almost everything you can imagine. But in the beginning, they sold one product, books. That's how they broke through the wall. So you have...
It's so powerful, Rory. I use Dave Ramsey as that example. So I just want to back up what you said. I mean, Dave started with money. I know my wife and I don't even know if you know this. My wife and I were his first ever employees out of his home in Antioch, Tennessee. We came there and we, help him work and then watch the kids while he and Sharon went on a date or we did whatever.
That's awesome.
And here he is talking about saying that in money, that's where he started. Now today, to back up what you said, today, people listen to him talk about anything. He is not felt, I mean, he does not feel confined to money. He can now, his influence is so huge, but I am so grateful that you said that. But he started with that. We hear niche all the time, but you just said it in such a way that we can understand it, that we've got to, that breaking the wall. I love the visual. I love the visual. I mean, I'll probably put that in the intro because, and I've done that. It's so hard not to look at a Gary Vaynerchuk, who I went after one time and thought, oh my gosh, his engagement is out of the roof, out of the roof with Wine Library. And I thought, I need to go do that. Of course, we come to find out I am not Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm not spitting in a helmet and, calling wine dirty socks and whatever. I'm just a talking head. Not the same thing. And it's a great point, Rory, because I've done that as well. I've emulated people errantly. And I've also taught that, hey, go model, what's working, which is true. But if we look at the person who's already arrived, the math doesn't quite work. We're not there yet. And the best I've come to saying at this point is, okay, here's what I think is best. Now, if you're Dave Ramsey or Huberman or one of these people with a gigantic show, you can violate everything. They can kind of do anything at this point. They come on the line, on the air, anybody's gonna talk to them. I'm not them.
Yeah.
So I've got to pay attention to my niche, my narrow way. And so it's the danger of emulate what's working, but we got to pay attention to the fact that we may not be there at that point.
And it's more of like emulate what worked for them, not
That's
what's working
fair.
For them, right?
That's great.
I mean, The Rock, sure, he has a clothing line and he has tequila and he has investments and he's a comedian and an actor. But in the beginning, he was a professional wrestler. And he did that one thing really, really well. And coming back to the multiple streams of income, right? This applies to your money. Look, we have had 5 billionaire clients. I have personally had 5 private billionaire clients. Nobody who got rich from multiple streams of income. The way you get rich is having one freaking amazing stream of income. You have one thing that just crushes, that does really, 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 really well. You put your time and energy and focus into one thing, and that one thing takes off. And once you break through the wall on that one thing, then you make a bunch of money, then you diversify, right? Yes, Elon Musk owns a whole bunch of companies, but in the beginning, Elon Musk made money from PayPal, right? Jeff Bezos had Amazon, like that. Bill Gates had Microsoft. Like in the beginning, it's one thing, and then you diversify and you spread the risk around. But it's like, it's not having 10 different side hustles, sweetheart. Like that's not how you do it. It's just not, but it's not popular, right? And so much of this, a lot of what we're sharing is truth that isn't super like, trendy and popular, but it's what works, right? And
well, again, you say it, but I mean, this is your area. Let's go to that. So Rory, you're saying this, it's brilliant because you've devoted yourself, just like Brene devoted herself to shame. You have devoted yourself to this area of influence, of brand, of purpose, even of taking the purpose and then running it into the business world. And I would say when I think of you taking from your standpoint, and that I share as well, taking God's purpose in your life and then taking it in the marketplace and kind of, as Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And there's a methodology out here. Here's how it works. So we've just taken that, we've kind of come down that road of purpose and uniqueness. And now we're getting into the business of that. And not that's a step one, but I love that we came into that of you saying, okay, so, here's a way to find your purpose. Here's the way then to come into it. And it is very specific. I love the sledgehammer on one part of the wall over and over and over. Man, again, that speaks to me, Rory. I struggle with that as well. Because my peers, I'm kind of, you got the knowns and the unknowns. And I'm kind of whatever the word for the middle is, I feel like I'm kind of in there. And it's difficult to look, gosh, what's working over here? This is working for Gabrielle Lyon. This is working for Ed Mylett. And I got to come back with Rory wisdom and go, okay, I'm not them. I'm me. They're at a different place. What worked for them at the stage that I am, that's what I want to emulate. I mean, all this is it's kind of like a breath of fresh air because otherwise it's so overwhelming for everybody, especially when you're just starting out. But there's so many people who they've started and they're just sitting there and they're the best kept secret and they know it. And man, that's a hard place to be.
Yeah, it's sucky. Well, and I think also you don't want to get consumed with people who you think are ahead of you. If you're going to get consumed with someone, get consumed with the person you're supposed to help, right? Be consumed with like, not what's this person doing or that person's doing. It's like, be consumed with understanding your avatar in a deeper, more meaningful way. Both, that's a great spiritual tactic. That's a great business strategy. It's also a tremendous monetization strategy. So let's talk money for a second.
Okay.
Somebody asked me this question, which I loved. I so appreciated their their honesty in the question. As they said, Rory, all of these people that pay you to be their private coach, like a private consultant, they all have way more followers than you do. Why would they pay you when they've got so many more followers? And I said, well, you shouldn't be impressed by how many followers that people have. You should be impressed by who makes the most amount of money from the fewest number of followers, because that's the real magic. Is going, how do you? It would be hard to emulate a strategy to go, the only way to make money is to have millions of followers. That's hard to emulate. What's invigorating is the idea to go, no, you can make millions of followers, or you can make millions of dollars without having millions of followers.
Okay. Can I confirm that and tell you, please remind me when we're off the microphone, because I'm going to keep this person anonymous. Oh my gosh, I got to set up a call with you guys right away. It's somebody who has over 1 million followers.
Yeah.
Okay. I love what they're doing. They are providing value, and they are just about to shut it down because they're so frustrated at the ability to get anything out. And they feel like they're pouring their lifeblood in.
Yeah, they are.
There's great engagement, whatever, and they're not making money and they're about to shut it down. So that's a great example of that, of you saying, yeah, are they making any money out of it? They've got a ton of followers, looks impressive, not working. We do need to talk about that, because you need to help them.
Yeah. Well, and let's take that. I'll teach you how to make money right now. Right. So here's the thing, right? So we call that being Twitter rich and dollar broke. That happens every day. We get that call every day. Right. Well, and I don't mean it to sound bragging and arrogant, although it kind of comes across that way. I'm just saying, like, we got an 8-figure business. I don't know. I got like 40,000 followers. And the reason is because we understand how money works and what monetization strategy looks like. So this is
and if your followers are Gabrielle Lyon and Ed Mylett and whatever, that says a lot about the value.
But they didn't find us from online, but those people do follow me. But by the way, we haven't even said this yet, which we need to, is the way that we define personal branding is simply the digitization of reputation. It's not fonts and colors and logos and followers. It's your reputation. It's just digitizing it. And
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to hit specifically personal branding before we get into business. I know you do that well. So whenever you're ready, I want to dive into that, because I still feel
we're
like
already in the middle. I mean, this whole conversation has been it.
Then let's define that we're talking about that, because when people hear branding, they hear fonts and colors and even positioning and what my flavor is and whatever. And you're backing people up. I think it's the common sense that is not that common. And again, I've fallen victim to it as well. Okay, but wait, the business brand is the fruition of my personal brand, and I have missed it so many times.
Well, and the brand is your reputation. Like, that's the key thing to think about. It is the digitization of your reputation. When you hear the word brand, you maybe think, oh, it's funnels, it's copywriting, it's websites, it's podcasts, it's YouTube, it's colors, it's fonts, it's logos. Well, those are some elements that kind of touch it, but the core is it's your reputation. That's what a personal brand is. It's what are you known for? Who trusts you? And what are you about? And that is far more connected to your purpose in who do you serve and what do you want to dedicate your life to, and what are you an expert on, and what one subject area do you spend your whole life researching, than it is to what email marketing automation tool you use, and where do you host your website? So like the whole world is like lost in all these like low level tactical conversations. And that's why we're a personal brand strategy firm. Is like all of those things can be solved, and they're all easily solved. There's, and it's the strategy part is the part that matters. When you look at breaking through the wall, you don't break through the wall because you use the right hashtags. You don't break through the wall because you have the right website host, right? You break through the wall because your heart is in the right place and you're dialed in on the audience that you're serving. So this whole conversation.
I want to pull out something you said there, Rory, because again, everything I'm saying, I am always in on the journey of figuring out my own, brand and positioning. And gosh, my listeners should know that I went from the Ziegler Show to Self-Helpful to What Drives You. There's a reason as I was finding my own voice, even though I had a podcast that was successful, people are listening to it. It was still kind of, okay, it's a good show, but what does Kevin do? What is Kevin known for? And I still see that with people, back to the best kept secret, where they say, oh my gosh, but I can do this. I can help a person this way. I've done it, and I can do this, and I can do this. But then at the end of the day, I got to realize even with them that I don't know what you're known for. I don't know who I would recommend to you.
That's right.
I mean, you're a great person. I know you can help people, but I don't know. What's Rory do? He's at the face value, he's branding guy, branding influence. That's who you go to. So I know I just told you, here's somebody came to mind that has a zillion followers.
That's right.
A lot of influence, whatever. They're not making money. Rory's your guy. End of story. I'm not sending them to Ed Mylett or Tony Robbins or whatever. I'm sending Rory. You have done this. It is so, I was going to say it's so difficult. Maybe you would not agree with that. To us, most of it feels still so difficult. And we're all sitting around as the best kept secret. And everybody's saying, great guy, great gal.
Oh, it's tremendous.
What are they known for? I don't know.
It's tremendously difficult, mostly because of the amount of discipline it takes to say no to all the other things in order to decide and dedicate your life to having one focus. I mean, that's the part that's difficult about it. And it's also hard to see the forest through the trees. That's why most of what we do is one-on-one coaching with people, because it's like you have to have a conversation with another human to see this. It's hard to see it for yourself.
That is important, Rory. I do feel like I have even had success helping other people figure out what's unique about them and bring it forward.
Doing
myself
is hard.
It was my brother who's so much. He's like, dude, this is what you do. You're the drive guy. I mean, I literally had it when I first started about the book. It was like, I want my kids to know what they want. And so what's my book going to be called? Know What You Want. It's not very sexy. And he's like, you're the drive. I had to have somebody else help me. So back to, shameless promotion. This again is why we've got you on the show, and you're a source for everybody, which again, folks, I'm going to say this 100 times, freebrandcall.com/drive. Go there, go give Rory your money. He's in a business and he earns it.
And that's the first call. We do the first call with everybody for free to even just see if we're the right fit. And we've got 3 different tiers of programs, right? So we have stuff for people just starting out. We have people like our flagship program. And then we have like private clients who want to like move really fast and get stuff done. So we can work with everybody, the whole spectrum, but that first call is free. But
personal brand, I'm going to give you kudos again. You connected me to Ryan Serhant.
Oh yeah, for an interview. For the show.
Yeah, you connected us. Kevin, you should have Ryan on the show, and we had him on the show, and I think we talked for 2.5 hours. And afterwards, he says that's the longest conversation I've ever had in my life, and my wife's going to be really upset because I've never talked to her this long. So that's my one of my memories with Ryan. But on him, he talked about in branding that your business brand is I'm paraphrasing, maybe his quote, but it is the fruition of your personal brand. It's not a set alone standoff business over here. It is I'm using the word fruition. You say it in a better way probably, but we are coming from our personal brand to develop our business brand.
I mean, I think so. Technically, we don't do business branding, right? So Brand Builders Group, we've drawn a hard line to say we do personal brand strategy only. So we only work with, now we can work with the CEO of a company or an executive or the founder, but like we only work with one individual and go, let's build this person's personal brand. That's part of our uniqueness, right? But I would say that, everything we talk about holds true still for companies, and for small businesses especially. The brand, i.e. reputation of the founder, is essentially what the brand is of the business, and they're pretty hard to extract from one another.
I was going to say, if I'm a plumber, and I've got a business, I'm going to do, how many plumbers are in your town, Kevin? I don't know. I'm in a small town. Let's say there's 10 other plumbers. I'm going to be a plumber. I'm great. I love it. And you would say, okay, so what's unique about me? And it would still come back down to, well, man, I really do great septic systems. Okay. And I do them really great for the ones that are really hard out here in Colorado. Sometimes if you hit clay, it's really difficult. Okay. That's unique. And it's still coming from me. Am I tracking?
Yeah. I mean, it's that even at Ryan Serhant level. Ryan's a client of ours. I don't know if he told you that, but Ryan's also a client of ours, right? And you go, even Serhant, which is becoming a really fast growing brokerage, it's really strongly connected to his personal brand.
Totally.
But the question, like, what is my brand, is not really the important question. The in terms of tactically how to get there.
Okay.
The real question, which is part of the genesis. I mean, we already talked about being clear on your who. That's one of the most important early questions. The other early question that really matters a lot is, what problem do I solve? And this technically is the genesis of building a personal brand, is answering this one simple question with one simple word. And most people cannot answer this one question with one word. And if you can't answer this one question with one word, almost everything else falls apart as you move down the journey.
Give me some examples.
So we've talked about shame is Brene Brown, debt is Dave Ramsey, pain is Tony Robbins, poverty would have been Mother Teresa, racism would be Martin Luther King Jr., procrastination. So procrastination was my first one. Self-doubt was what we identified with Lewis Howes. So when we started, Lewis Howes was our first client. We started working with Lewis in 2018. In fact, we weren't even going to start a company. That the way that all happened was we sold our other company, and Lewis called us the day we exited our former business. And he said, I had helped him just as a friend with his first book launch. And then we had lost touch, and a few years had gone by, and he said, hey, my podcast has grown. I've been doing it for 8 years. I've made it to 30 million downloads. So like, we're doing well. I'm making millions of dollars a year, but I'm not keeping very much. I'm working like crazy. I feel like I'm hiring all the people and I'm not really moving the needle. I'd love to just borrow your brain any chance you're available. And it was like, well, our calendar's wide open. So he came over, and we took him through 2 days of just basically asking him these questions and going through a process that we had not formalized. We had never taken anyone through it. And he said, this is the most powerful 2-day experience I've ever had in my life. This for business. This is your new business. This is what you guys were born to do. And we're like, well, we're not in business. We just sold a business. Like, we're out, we're done. And he said, no, this is what you're supposed to do. And we're like, well, we don't have a team. We don't have any, we lost all of our team and our database. And he's like, that's okay. I'm going to have you on the podcast and we're going to tell the whole world. And so we started working closely with Lewis in 2018. And so it took him about 8 years to get to 30 million downloads. And then when we started working with him, that first day is what we got clear on, was that his uniqueness, his life's dedication is to helping people overcome self-doubt. And we started framing the conversations, the interviews on the podcast all around not just tell me your story, but tell me, how did you overcome self-doubt? So an interview on his show is different from that guest on other shows. And Lewis is tying into his journey of self-doubt, because he's most powerfully positioned to serve the person he once was, which was this very shy, awkward kid. And then he becomes a professional athlete, and then he gets injured, and that dream falls apart, and he's back into self-doubt, and he's living on his sister's couch. Anyways, in the next 2.5 years, he went from 30 million downloads to 500 million downloads.
He's another like Gabrielle. And again, I'll give you kudos to however much you'll take. But he's one where I've watched, because I've been around. Blew up. He's just everywhere. And I've had people, and they ask, I don't know. I don't even know. He's top 200 podcast worldwide. I mean, he has blown up. So obviously it worked.
Lewis gives us a lot of credit publicly. I think, again, far more than we deserve. Here's the one thing that we really helped Lewis on is when Lewis first came to us that first couple of days, we took him through an exercise that we now call the revenue streams assessment, where we had him list all of his revenue streams, and he had 17 revenue streams as like a badge of honor. And
you said he was making a lot of money and said, I'm not keeping much of it and I'm working like crazy.
And that's because if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. Period. Full stop. End of story. If you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. I mean, look, just if you have 10 units of resource, what is resource? Whatever, money, time, attention, prayer, relationships, skills, knowledge, whatever. If you have 10 units of resource and you distribute that 10 units of resource across 10 different initiatives, each initiative is going to get 1 unit of resource. And that's how 99% of the world operates. And if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. This is back to Sheehan's wall and our whole kind of central strategy. And so we go, well, if you take 10 units of resource and you apply those to one initiative, that one initiative now has 10 units of resource on it. And you're competing in a world where 99% of the people you're competing against all have 1 unit of resource on that one initiative, and you have 10x to that. So with Lewis, we told him the thing, like, we didn't teach him how to grow a podcast. We didn't teach him how to be cool. We didn't teach him how to get great guests. We didn't teach him any of that. What we did pretty firmly, and to his credit, he had some pretty big cojones to do this, was we overnight shut down 14 of his revenue streams. And we went down to 3 and later went down to 2. And we were the people, I will take credit for this to whatever it's worth, that said, Lewis, we think the podcast, because at the time his money was coming from courses, that he was really a course company. That's where his revenue was coming from. But we said, Lewis, we feel like the podcast could be the thing if you went all in on it. What would happen if you just went all in on this one thing? And to his credit, he's the one that did all the work. He's the one that made all the hard choices. We just kind of helped him see, like, what is your uniqueness? We think that your uniqueness lies in not trying to be a keynote speaker and not trying to be a course creator and not trying to be even like a content creator, but more of a content curator. Like, we kind of said, like, the podcast seems to give you life. It seems to have one of the other things we look for a lot, Kevin. So we teach our strategists this is to go, where do you have natural momentum? Natural momentum is it's a hint to your uniqueness.
Okay.
And so Lewis wasn't making a ton of money from the podcast, but he had natural momentum with it. And it was like, man, this, of all the things you're putting time into, this is the thing that you're getting an over index of a return on your time. What if you increase the investment there? And so diluted focus, diluted results, increased focus, increased results. That's really all that happened. I mean, it was literally as simple as that. So we helped Lewis see that, but he's the one who did all the work. And I mean, we helped with some other stuff too. But
it's so important because, again, back to what you said a little bit ago, those of us who are trying to have, I mean, again, our umbrella over here is influence. We want to take our influence and help people. That's what you do. That's what your business is dedicated to.
And obscurity is the problem we solve, by the way. So in one word, Brand Builders Group, the problem we solve is obscurity. People who are unclear, untrusted, and unknown. And for us, it is an actual spiritual endeavor, even though other people would go, well, that seems like a vain endeavor, or that seems like a money-driven endeavor. And it's like, well, for me and AJ, it's not. We feel like God is telling us, help my people be heard. And we don't only work with Christians, but we're very open about the fact that we're hardcore Bible thumping Jesus freaks. I mean, we have atheists that work in our company. We have Muslims that work in our company. They're some of our best friends. And we have atheists, and we have all types of people who are in our membership of 840, something one-on-one clients. But that's our mission. We're drawn to that. We're called to that. We have experience doing that, solving that problem for ourselves. That's the journey. I went from being raised by a single mom, born in a trailer park with, no college degree and no money, and going, how do you become wealthy and well-known? And that's what.
By the way, I saw your posts.
About
Rory.
my mom, the Mother's Day post?
Your Mother's Day post. I just happened to see that, or maybe it was a podcast. Maybe it was your podcast. And I saw you did 2 with your mom, and it stuck out with me because I did 1 or 2 podcasts back in January with my mom while my dad was dying, actively, in his hospice bed dying. And it was so powerful. So it stuck out to me that, here's 2 that list, I think it was your podcast, that list your mom. That's interesting. And then the one that said her sharing her story from aborting.
2 abortions. She had my brother, and then she had 2 abortions, and then she had me, and then she was divorced again. So she was divorced twice, had 2 abortions, and had 2 kids under the age of 5 by the time she was 22 years old.
Wow.
And
I just wanted to.
So we had her for Mother's Day.
I wanted to recognize that because I love the personality of it and the humility and the candor of you doing that. So that was just, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, she's an amazing, amazing woman. Well, there you go. Right. It's like nobody would ever wish that journey on somebody, but like my mom is doing abortion counseling, like post-abortive counseling for women. And, that it's interesting because, the abortion conversation is obviously a very heated topic, but typically when people talk about abortion, they talk about it from a lens of like, it's either the mother's right to have it or it's the child's right to not have it done to them.
Right.
What nobody ever really talks about is what's the long-term impact on the mother after she chooses to have it. And that's what my mom walked through. And I mean, just horrible shame and guilt and just devastating, like psychological effects on her for decades. I mean, she kept that secret for decades. And then, she found God's grace and became free of that shame and and helps other women understand, like, there's a dynamic to this choice that you're probably not thinking about, which is what it's going to do to you long term. So anyway, so we talked about, those things and just her story, because
it was significant. Yeah. I thank you. And I just appreciate using your platform for that as well. And I'm so glad you said obscurity. It's not a word I had pulled out even in looking at your stuff. And yet that right there, it grieves me. I mean, even my own efforts to not remain in obscurity, but it's always bothered me, man. I remember back in the day, I used to go with my dad, who you knew well, and go to the Christian Booksellers Association.
Nice.
Okay. Here's my example. You'll appreciate it. Everybody will get it. And, you go in there, you're supposed to be a book dealer, but I get to go in because I was connected with him. And we literally come out with bags of books written by Christians, fiction, nonfiction, whatever. I was generally getting the nonfiction. And I'd put them on the bookshelf. And at some point I'd pull one down. Rory, there were so many books that I pulled off the shelf that changed my life. I thought this book, and here's what got me. Here's what grieved me and why I love what you do. Because it grieves me, but it's not my calling to do this. It's my calling to have Rory on my show so he can help people do this. And I said, I know that this person got this message and felt it was an anointing from God.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that it really was, in my faith, that they were anointed by God. And they took it and they put it on a book. But chances are, and I'm going to say but chances are they thought, God gave me this. I want to put it in a book. God will take care of it and proliferate it and sell it. And I'll sell 20 million copies like Rick Warren, or 100 million or whatever he sold. And they'll go. And I knew as I sat there that they weren't, that they would sell 500 copies or 1,000 copies.
That's right.
And they'd be on to the next book or the next thing. And it grieved me that they were going to remain in obscurity. It was a great message. And it was often a really stupid book cover, a dumb title, It didn't tell what it was. The book wasn't crafted well, even though the message was gorgeous. And they remain in obscurity. And I don't like that. I want to think that, my gosh, I got something anointed by God. It's just going to go out there. And it kind of brings me back to the render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. I don't know that God specifically created the marketplace and Instagram and the things that, that are out here today that we got to compete with. And so we've got to go seek wisdom.
Yeah. Well, and I wish we lived in a world, Kevin, where the best idea won. I wish we lived in a world where the person with the most character and the most integrity won. I wish that were true. I'm telling you, I'm more convicted than ever. That ain't true. That's not the world we live in. We live in the world where the most sophisticated marketer wins.
Thanks for saying that. And that's disappointing. Everybody that just heard that and they cringed and it made them frustrated, please know that you share that. I was on a call with a handful of people in a private membership with me a couple of days ago. And almost all of them, Rory, just said, I wish we didn't even have to do social media. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't even like the flavor and the feel of it. And yet they're sitting there with a message that they care about and going, but I got to do something to get it out there so I don't remain in obscurity. And that's irritating to people. And what I see happen then is people just give up. And they go, well, I don't like the game. It's unfair. It's not going to reward the best anointed idea. So I'm out. And we get deprived of their message. And that grieves me.
Yeah. And the market just gets more cannibalized by better marketers. And here's the way you have to think about it, right? Because you go, every artist wants their art to sell itself.
Yeah.
They go, if my art is good enough, it will sell itself. And what I would say is there's two parts of the art. There's the art of making it, and then there's the art of selling it. And marketing is art. Great marketing done well is artistry. And marketing is a part of your art. And it is also a part of your responsibility. Look, if you have the cure to cancer, if you sat in your basement and you figured out the cure to cancer, and then you never told anyone about it, and you just sat and were annoyed that nobody came knocking on your door asking if you had the cure for cancer, and that the news station didn't show up and interview you to tell everybody, and you didn't have someone write you a check so that you could tell. But it's like, no, if you discovered the cure for cancer in your basement, you have a responsibility. You have an obligation to...
You just said it. That's Zig's quote. So folks, Zig Ziglar, if you believe your product or service can fulfill a true need, it's your moral obligation to sell it.
That's it. That's it. And that's where the magic happens. That's where you break through the wall, because there's really only one time, Kevin, when you feel fear, and it's when you're thinking about yourself. Fear is such a self-centered concept, right? It's like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I going to look weird on this camera angle? Am I going to sound stupid? Is anyone going to watch my videos? Are my friends from high school going to make fun of me? It's all me, 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 me. But there is no fear once the mission to serve becomes clear. The moment you start thinking about helping someone else, all of that disappears. There is no fear when you're thinking about helping somebody. I mean, if there's a car accident and there's a car turned over and you hear someone yelling for help and you run over there, you're not thinking about, how does my hair look? Does my breath stink? Do these pants make my butt look big? You're not thinking about that. Because why? Because you're focused on helping someone. When you are focused on helping someone, fear disappears. Because that's the power, right? I mean, that's where the courage, the courage is like, feel the fear and do it anyway. I think to me, it's more of like, there is no fear when I'm thinking about who I'm going to help. I mean, I'm pretty sure firefighters are scared, and cops get scared, and military soldiers get scared. Why do they do it day in and day out? Why? Because they're helping someone.
Mm-hmm.
They risk their own lives, the livelihood of their family. Why? Because they get genuine purpose and meaning from the fact that their life matters because they're helping other people. And the fear disappears, like, it goes away. And so if you're feeling fear, you're probably being self-centered. You're probably thinking about you. You're thinking about how do you look on camera instead of thinking about who you're helping on the other side of the camera. And that's a shift that you got to make. It's a psychological switch that has to happen. And then you also go, if I'm just focused on helping people, I'm also not that concerned what my competitors are doing. I'm not worried that so-and-so has a bigger show than me. I'm not worried that so-and-so has more followers or so-and-so makes more money. I'm going like, I'm running my race that God has put in front of me. I'm helping the people that are struggling with the issue that I can help them with, that I've been uniquely equipped to support. And that's my deal.
I'm thinking about your mom. How would she feel about a competitor? Let's say that she was going out and trying to make a name and write a book, and have a business on helping people who recover from having had an abortion.
Yeah.
And she met somebody else who was doing the same thing. She wouldn't look at him and go, "Oh crap, they're just going to lose business." She's like, "High five. As many of us as we can get together, we're stoked about if we're focused on helping, not about the money." It's a great perspective.
Totally. The other thing about that is just like it's a straight up like scarcity mindset. I mean, look, you don't have to be worried about competitors. I mean, to me, it's really silly. First of all, we never find uniqueness by looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to do something different from them. We find uniqueness by celebrating more of who you already are and leaning into that. But if somebody loves Mexican food, they don't only eat from one Mexican restaurant. They try to eat as much Mexican food at as many different places as they possibly can. They want to sample all the things on the menu. They homemade Mexican food. They'll buy it from the street cart. They'll go to the fancy Mexican restaurant. Like, if somebody loves what you have, it's not like, oh, they're only going to listen to one podcast or they're only going to read one leadership book. I mean, that's silly, right? But we spend so much of our time like consumed with, oh, someone else already wrote that book or someone already has that show. And it's like, well, sure, but nobody can hear it quite. No one can say it quite the way that you can. We call this the law of the frequency, by the way. Okay, so here's a great literal example. If you have two radio stations in the same town playing the exact same song at the exact same time, you might go, well, what a waste. Why would two radio stations play the same song at the same time? Well, because only certain people will hear the song from each station, and it depends on which frequency they are tuned into. And that is in a literal, I mean that in a literal metaphysical sense, that there are frequencies. Some people, as much as Brené Brown owns the topic of shame, some people will not be able to listen to Brené Brown talk about shame because she's a middle-aged white woman who teaches at the University of Houston. They would rather learn about shame from a black woman who, grew up in poverty, or, from somebody like somebody will be motivated by Tony Robbins. Other people go, he's not my jam. It's not about trying to analyze what's going on in the market and try to differentiate yourself from people in the market. It's about leaning into who you are and celebrating more of that.
I want you to tell us more on that, because that comes up a lot. I mean, I'm having you on my show. Lord knows how many other shows, you were on Lewis Howes' show. Lewis Howes is a much bigger show. I think I'm pretty good at what I do, but he's really good at what he does. So why listen? Well, hopefully, one, I come at it at a different angle. I'm asking different questions. I have different interests. I'm pulling out different nuances. One, we hope that. Two, I like what you said. Now, unfortunately, he and I are both relatively tall white American males, but let's pretend that we weren't. Well, but I'm different.
Listeners are different.
He's married. I don't think he has a kid, does he?
No, he's not married yet. He's engaged.
Is he not? Okay, so there. So here's a single dude. He's doing his thing. He's doing different. I have 100 children. I live up on a mountain. I'm into athletic stuff. I talk about health and wellness. So the people who resonate with those things, I know, are more prone to listen to me, even if the show itself may not be dramatically different from someone else when you've got a new book and we're all talking about the person saying book, but they like hearing it from me, or they don't. Just like you said, they'd rather hear it from a single, a woman,
Right,
or a man of a different ethnicity, or who has had a different background because they would resonate with that. I'm just so aware of that.
And you should lean into that. So so here's a good example. I mentioned that I'm a hardcore Bible thumping Jesus freak, right? So one of the things that I did recently, so when I was in my 20s, I kind of I was raised Catholic. Then in my teens, kind of left the church, and then kind of rediscovered God in college. But then I became pretty skeptical. And so I'm a very analytical person, right? And so I needed to look at the evidence of how do you really even know this Jesus person existed? And do you really believe that he did miracles? And what evidence is there possibly that this guy rose from the dead? I mean, that's preposterous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on this journey and I started studying and I found all of these answers and I kept it to myself. It's this is my private, my religion, my thing is private. And then about 2 years ago, Kevin, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was terrified. I had this thought that now I'm a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got 2 boys. And I had this thought, what happens if I die before my 2 boys, Jasper and Liam, are old enough to have a conversation with me about the logical, academic reasons why Daddy believes in the story of Jesus of Nazareth? It freaked me out. So I was like, I'm going to record it. I'm going to record it so that there's a recording of this. And so I was like, I'll do a special podcast episode, just random. So I sit down to make an outline for this episode. The outline was 95 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then I recorded it. It was 27 hours. I had no idea that I had accumulated over 20 years that much evidence of academic, logical evidence. And so I recorded it. And then I was like, well, it's too many hours of content. That's too different from our normal personal brand podcast. So I was like, all right. So I put on a separate podcast. And so then I started sharing it. And it was at first I was afraid that maybe people wouldn't buy from me because I was talking about faith and religion. And what's been amazing is perhaps some have not, right? Perhaps some have not. But so many people that have said, well, I liked what you were saying, but the moment that I knew where you stood and the fact, and not all of them are believers. Some of them just going, the fact that you had the courage to put out into the world what you really stand for made me want to do business with you. So, and that is how it is. People want to do business with you. We did this Trends in Personal Branding national research study. We found all these, we spent over $100,000 on this. We found all these data points about how much a personal brand empirically, scientifically matters, right? 74% of Americans say they're more likely to trust someone who has an established personal brand, and not just TikTokers and YouTubers. In fact, doctors are the most, 61% of Americans said they want their doctor to have an established personal brand. Lawyers, financial advisors, basically the higher the requirement for trust in your business, the data says the more people want you to have an established personal brand. But it's part of how you separate yourself from the noise is being more of who you are. And the more that I share about what I believe, I probably will repel some people, right? But part of why people are drawn to Gary Vaynerchuk is I don't cuss. I don't drink I don't drink wine. I don't drink alcohol at all. I'm not into Web3 stuff. I'm not really that into sports, but I follow Gary Vaynerchuk because he's so passionate about what he believes. And there's an overlap area where he really is an expert that I draw a lot from. And I go like, you can just be who you are, and then people know sooner whether you're their person or not. And even if you're not, sometimes you attract them. It's that mediocre middle, which is sort of like the dangerous place to be sort of stuck.
It's so hard, Rory. It's so, because I hear you. It's so funny. It was the same call I referenced a minute ago. And I had, again, these people that I've been kind of walking with, and they kind of went off a little bit about wishing that I would share more about my own life. They said, we know you got all these kids, you do whatever. You don't really, I mean, you reference it, but you don't talk about it. And I don't, it's probably some, aspect of a humility thing. I don't want to, but I'm here and I'm really interested in your point. And I want to talk about that, or a point. I want to communicate a point. I don't think to tell stories, even in my own life. I'm just not a person who naturally tells stories. And yet, as you talk about this, a personal brand, you said, is a digitization of your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So reputation, what is that? Well, it's knowing the person, it's trusting them. And if I'm going to trust somebody, I do need to know about them. I mean, I really kind of want to know where you land. I do, at least spiritually. I like to know if people, not to whether I trust them, but just, where are you at personally? I mean, I asked my guests this, are you married? You got kids? I want the context of that. And it doesn't mean they have to have a perfect marriage. If they've been divorced twice, okay, I want the context of that. I want to know about you. And it's not about, I had somebody recently say, I really don't care what you had for breakfast, and I don't want to know about your bowel movement. And we can go too far into some of that stuff, but the aspects of it, I do want to know you. And I know so many people, and I'll pick on people of faith who, like myself, who tend to get the feeling of, I don't want to be egotistical and focus on me, and I'm not going to talk about me. And yet, if people don't know you, what do they latch onto? We're back to frequency, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, and if you just take the word trust for a second, right? Because that was one of the biggest things that came out of the data of the Trends in Personal Branding National Research Study that we did. We give it away as a free lead magnet now, but if you go, how do you where does trust come from in a practical sense? Well, first of all, we trust people who we see, right? We trust the people we live with that we see every day. We trust the people in our neighborhood that we recognize their face, people that we went to high school with. And we also trust celebrities, interestingly enough, when we don't even know their real name, but we see them, right? We trust them. That's why endorsement deals work, is like, I see that person's face. So you go, well, that's important, because it matters that people see me, not for vanity, not because I'm trying to be famous, but because in order to impact someone's life, I have to earn their trust. And part of how I earn people's trust is they become familiar with my face. So that's a part of it. Who else do we trust? We trust people that we learn from, right? We trust pastors. We trust counselors. We trust doctors, teachers, lawyers, accountants, people that we learn from, mentors, right? So we go, okay, well, we tend to trust people who teach us things. So if I want someone to trust me, they got to see me and they got to learn from me. So that really informs our whole content strategy, going, great, I want them to see me, and I want to share things that are educational for people. And then the third part, which was the part took me the longest to catch on, is that we trust people who we know intimate details about. I mean, if you made a list of the 10 people you trust the most in your life, there's a good chance you do know what their favorite food is. There's a good chance you do maybe know something about their bowel movement. Not that you should share that on social media, but you probably do know the mistakes that they made in college. You know their not so great features, and you know their most amazing features, and you know little insignificant, what's their favorite color, and you also know their favorite music, and then you also know their spirituality and where they stand on, different issues. You know those things about them. So social media, in a weird way, gives us a chance for people to feel like they know us. They know the name of your cat. They know your favorite sports team. They know what you do with your kids on the weekends. They know where you spend your free time. They know what you're reading. And so from a content marketing strategy, the way that informs our strategy is we go, First of all, our whole content marketing strategy, this is what we teach, and it's just super simple. The philosophy is teach everything you know for free in all bite-sized chunks and all random miscellaneous order. Because people don't pay for information, they pay for application. So you can teach everything you know for free. They pay for, but they're going to pay you anyways because they're going to pay for organization and application. So you can just teach it all random order as you're thinking about it, and then later they'll still buy it because they need help applying it. But then your feed, think of your Instagram feed. Your feed is what you do, because that's what attracts strangers, right? No one's coming to follow me on social media to see pictures of my cat, right? Unless my whole feed is about cats, and then cat people are coming to see pictures of cats. So your feed is what you do. Your stories, though, are where you share who you are. Because somebody's going to start scoping your stories right before they're going to buy. They're going to, or if they're already a client, or if they're going to refer you, or if they're just somebody who really likes you and wants to know you. And those are the people who care to know you. And if someone doesn't care to know you and they just want your expertise, you go, great, my expertise is available on my Instagram feed. If you want to know more about me, most of that happens in stories. And occasionally I share a picture, now because I have my Eternal Life podcast, my once a week, every Sunday, I share a little clip from that.
Is that where I failed to, because we ran right into another topic, but you shared and you had told me this, a couple of weeks ago, the feed you did with your kids in mind of your perspective on spirituality. Was that the title of this
podcast is called Eternal Life, 7 Questions Every Intelligent Skeptic Should Ask About Jesus of Nazareth. Thanks. And it's not an ongoing thing. It's basically an audiobook that's out there for free. It's just a series. Yeah. And it's not seasonal. I don't plan on adding to it. And it's out there in full and people can scope the questions. But, so I do a little clip from that every once in a while. But, the point is it's not rocket science here. It's like people see you, they learn from you, and they know a few details. Doesn't mean you have to share what you're wearing to bed at night, but what you spend your time doing. Who are you outside of your expertise matters because of trust. And we're still human. As much as we're engaging through screens, we're still human. And we still want to know who we're doing business with.
Rory, I read, obviously my guests. I check all my guests out because I do vet them for a level of, we don't have to have the same, you know what I'm getting at.
Ideology, the exact same ideology.
Yeah, I was going to say values, but he kind of is. I am looking at some similar values. It doesn't have to be the same, right back to religion. I've had, Don DePani on. It was one of the best talks I've ever had on spirituality, and he's Hindu. Well, I'm not. I don't think he's wrong, but I'm not. But we have the value of spirituality. I want to talk with people, for the most part, who do have a care and a concern for spirituality, because that's who I resonate with. Not a judgment, but the people that I resonate with. I look at people. I do resonate with families. I have a lot of people who don't have kids, or a lot of kids on the show. But relationships, let's call it that, back up. It's people who care about relationships. It doesn't matter how many relationships or what kind of relationships, but they have relationships. Health and wellness. For the most part, everybody on the show, we have a connection there. And it also kind of goes with a territory of values. Not many of them are on my bookshelves having done something great if they haven't also tended to their health and wellness. So ideology is a good way to say it. And that's who I'm going to have on the show. If their ideology is too far off of mine that I really can't resonate back to frequency, that's a really different frequency, I'm probably just not going to, again, forget judgment, but I just don't know how to talk with them. We're probably not going to have a good conversation. It's going to be inauthentic. So
your audience is curating. What you do as a podcast host is you're curating conversations that are useful to them, right? And so the reason people follow a podcast host is typically because they share a similar ideology as the host. And the host is like a sieve, right? I think our job as a host is to curate information that's relevant for our audience. That's what they're counting on us to do, to have a consistent experience.
And for that to come across, it's got to be relevant for me.
Totally.
And I remember doing, I'll admit there are times when I had somebody, especially, maybe a celebrity and the big, of course I'll have them on the show. And it was fine, but I've got a list of people. They're brilliant and I'm not going to have them back on the show because I just didn't connect.
Sure.
And I felt like if I can't, even if they're great, again, it's not judgment, right or wrong, good, bad. It's just, we didn't connect. Well, we shouldn't have a conversation beyond here. Somebody else who I do resonate with, probably like that, shame. I've not had Brene Brown on because her people didn't get her on the show here. So
she's hard to get these.
Yeah, I didn't get her. So, but on that, let's say I did, how many other people, like you said, even though she's rocked it out, how many other people talk on shame? And maybe there's one that I resonate with more. That's who I should have on the show. Again, we're back to brand and the specific, back to what you said early on. We're looking to serve people from what we have experienced, what we connect with, what we resonate with, people who are on our frequency. That makes it so much easier right there to look out there and go, man, I am not competing with everybody else. I do not have to have the same frequency as Gary Vaynerchuk because I don't, like you said, I don't drink, I don't cuss, I don't, whatever. He's got good value, but there's somebody else that talks about, well, like you said, you guys have some area of overlap. So you're on the show and Gary's not.
Yeah. I got to say this is one of the things that I loved the most about your dad. Your dad never once, ever, did I ever catch any sort of feeling of like comparison or trying to copy people or emulate them or being concerned. Like your dad was so focused on just being him and helping the people that was right in front of him, which being Dave Ramsey's best friend also had to come. I mean, that could have not been easy for somebody who was Dave Ramsey's best friend.
I'll be candid with that. Let me see. I mean, Dave, he and Dave were buddies, had been, his, my mom, Joanne, and Dave's wife, Sharon, were in a, women's group. They had been forever and doing life together and whatnot. Those guys were so different. Here's Dave, as you said, with his mountain that he owns and the company and 1,000 employees. And sometimes we kind of wanted to push Dad along that, what if you did this, it would help the brand and help. He's like, yeah, that's just not me, man.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm going to go drive the tractor for a while. And he was true to it. Even when we look and go, man, this could have been good and this would have been good. He said, that's just not me. All right, fair enough. It obviously worked for him.
It did. And your dad meant so much to people because of that, right? Like the people who followed him so closely. And that's a life well lived. I mean, like it's not a measure of the followers. Here's another mistake that I think a lot of people are making in this area of personal brand. You got to remember, don't be so focused on the width of your reach that you forget about the depth of your impact. And you go, okay, someone had 100 million podcast downloads, or you can adopt one child. Who had the bigger impact? I don't know, right? Like debatable. I don't know. I'm not the person to answer that, but I'm saying there's a pretty strong argument to be made for the impact of impacting one life in a deep, deep way. And for some reason, we've all forgotten about that piece of the measurement, if there is a measurement, right? It's just like, how many followers do I have? It's like, well, how deeply are you impacting people? And I think that's the thing. And when it comes to making money, by the way, we kind of got sidetracked off the money part, but the key to making money is to serve your current audience in a deeper way. Everyone thinks it's like, I'm going to have to grow my audience. It's like, no, you just serve your current audience in a deeper way. That is the key to making a lot of money quickly. But it's also, having the impact. And yes, we love the celebrity clients, and it's fun to work with John Maxwell and that stuff. But like, man, it fires me up when, Candy Valentino is another client of ours that been working with for like 5 years. And like, she is hitting her stride and blowing up. She hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list last year. And like, I mean, she's making a difference in the world, and she's teaching, people about entrepreneurship. And, she's this young woman that, started as an entrepreneur very early on. And it's like it really fills us up when there's someone that's making a deep impact, even if it's a smaller number of people.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important for people to remember.
Well, and back to what you said, and I don't know if this is, completely apples to apples, but if I look at your Instagram account, which you talked about, where you've got, 40,000 followers, something like that. And you're over here working with Lewis Howes, who probably has 5 million. I have no idea.
Millions, yeah.
He's got a zillion. Well, maybe it's a bad example, but because he's making some money or he's doing well, but to look at that and go, yeah, but what is the impact that you're having? And I look at that and go, gosh, if I just want listeners, there's some things that we can do, but what kind of listeners are they? Are they really looking to change and grow? And what is the depth of the impact there? And again, money does matter. But you can also, if I'm getting more money, I mean, we've seen that a long time, people who have a small audience, but oh my gosh, that audience is so loyal. That was my dad. That's a good.
Yeah, your dad didn't have a huge audience.
No, not relative to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, not relative to somebody like Dave, but made plenty of money. I mean, and most of all, made life-changing impact with thousands of people. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
We couldn't keep up with it, Rory. Not the people who just said, "Oh, Dan." The heartfelt testimonies just knocked our socks off. And you want to say, "Well, gosh, was it surprising?" Well, I guess not. But you don't know the depth of it, and to see the outpouring blew us away. It really did. We saved a lot of it. There's Facebook page that my sister saved of testimonies, and they were long testimonies of how he impacted them. I will say, what? I'll ask you about this, Rory. Just a quick side step. It was amazing. It amazed me. People read his book and they testify. I read his book, changed my life, whatever. It's great. Listen to the podcast, changed my life. But the vast majority, or at least the ones that stuck out to us, of all these hundreds and hundreds, were people who had a personal experience with him. They came to an event. They saw him at an event. They had even if it was only one, they may have followed him for 10 years, but they met him once, and they would bring that up. And it really called to me on kind of watching how much time I spend only behind the mic.
Oh yeah.
So I'm hearing you talking about impact. It's been weighing on me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone, it's all about finding your uniqueness. I mean, I really think that Larry hit that nail so strong on the head. Finding your uniqueness and exploiting it in the service of others. Some people it'll be behind a mic. Some people it'll be on a stage. Some people it'll be through, TikToks. Like some people, but the medium doesn't matter. The people are what matter. And it takes us full circle back to start with who.
Start with who. And Rory, man, we have done, for me, I'm taking notes like I normally do on my, guest document that I have here. And I'm over here on a note, taking notes of stuff like, oh my gosh, Kevin, you got to get on that. To the point of, we got to do another call. We need to do one just between us again. But so we've done justice to the heart of this, the concept that I wanted people to hear most. Now I will shamelessly be promoting this, in the intro and whatnot. But because there is still what do I specifically do that you guys work with people and on to the point of your website, your logo, the colors. I mean, you guys do that kind of stuff. It's just after all this. And I wanted people to realize that this is the essence. Because to me, it's hope. It's so much hope that, oh my gosh, I can be me. I can be me. And I can get help knowing more of who I am. And like you said, kind of bringing that forth in a bigger, or what was the exploiting? Whose quote was that?
Larry Winget. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exploiting it. So take me. I used to think of caricatures. You go to the fair or whatever, and you get a caricature done. Some guy or gal draws you, and they're looking for something that they can exaggerate a little bit. That's what brand is. So that you're going to help me as a client, help the client understand who we are, bring that out, I said exaggerate, but help exploit that so that we stand out and other people know, our uniqueness so we are not a best kept secret.
You got it.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. And I would just say, if of course, and we talked about freebrandcall.com/drive.
Yeah.
We'll do the first call with you we have to do a conversation because we want to hear your story. We want to hear, some about your past, and then we want to hear about the dreams you feel called to, because, if you have that calling on your heart, like if you're listening to this and going, man, I do feel like I've got something to share with the world in a bigger way than what I'm doing right now. We believe that the calling that you feel on your heart is actually the result of a signal that's being sent out by someone else, and that person needs you more than you need them. Like what you're feeling is actually a frequency, a signal that's being sent out. I mean, just think about this, because this is true, that there is somebody out there quite literally searching and seeking and begging and pleading and possibly on their hands and knees praying for answers to questions that you know how to solve like the back of your hand, because you already conquered that challenge. You already overcame that obstacle. You already walked down that path. And that person is looking for you. That person needs you way more than you need them. Way more than you need another follower or another dollar. And that is how it is. And you, in your life, whatever led to this, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person that you once were. And like, it not only creates money and brand strategy, but purpose and power and joy and divine significance to the time that we have here on earth. And so listen to that call and lean into it. And Kevin, thanks for having me, man. I love you. I love your mom. Joanna is the best. I love your brother. I love your dad. This has been a joy, brother.
Hey, thank you. This has been, again, I have such a heart for this aspect, bringing people out of obscurity, helping a good message be known. I have a heart for it. It's not my specific calling to help people I do what I can here with the show, but the mechanics of how to do that, which again, I want everybody to hear. I feel like we didn't even touch on the actual how to do it aspect. We talked about what to do and the opportunity here, and the specific how to you can find at the website we've been talking about, and we'll continue to promote that, man. I want to connect people to you and let them get their messages out get their missions out through you helping them with the message. Thanks, brother. Thanks for being here. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for helping me. It's been a gift.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, friends, thanks for joining us on this just powerful journey. Again, I hope and expect that you got a lot of inspiration and a lot of empowering and equipping right here that you can work on. I took notes. I keep going back to time and time again. I've shared them with other people. I've sent people to Rory already. You can go there and again, get their free input on you and what you're doing and how to best go forward. Go to freebrandcall.com/drive. There's literally no risk and nothing to lose, only gain to be had. Yeah. Friends, I hope this episode helps you drive further. And most of all, enjoy the ride.
Thanks so much for joining me on this journey. I look forward to meeting you in the Drive Tribe community for ongoing discussions about each episode. You can subscribe to the Drive Drop newsletter for weekly updates. Find it all at kevinmiller.co, along with all our social media and video clips. Until next time, I hope this episode helps you drive further and enjoy the ride. Yeah.